See, yes, see, I'm again starting from here. So as I said, we create objects using the new operator, right? And we initialize the newly created object using the constructor. So in the first line, we don't have this right hand side expression, right? We only have the class name followed by a variable. And you know what this variable is, right? These are known as the object reference variables, which we use to refer. Okay, so these object reference variables, these variables contains addresses of the object for that particular class. You know it. Okay, you know the detailed definition of it. So here we are simply creating a variable, right? In the next step, we are creating an object for the class A. Okay, and also its object reference variable. So here this is a full-fledged object that has been created. Okay, so this is this object that has been created. Okay, child class object, I have already mentioned. Child class means it is class A object. Okay, so this is the class A object that I have created. Let me just let me just clearly write it. This is the class A object which has been created. Okay, and this is this reference variable which will point to this object. So let me just point it out like this. ठीक है sir? So when this statement will be executed, you will have internally, you will have this kind of memory allocation. Fine, it will look like this. So this is the object reference variable for class A. Class A is the child class, remember that. লাগিলে মই এটা আকৌ এবাৰ লিখি দিছো, ঠিক আছে, child class A object, and this is this reference variable which will be pointing to this particular class A object. Now what are we doing is we are assigning the value that is stored in object 2 obj2 to obj1. So so this is a simple assignment statement, yes or no. Whatever is there in the right side will be assigned to the left side variable. So whatever is there, so what is there in obj2? It simply contains the address to this particular object, right? So whatever address is there, the same thing has been assigned to here also, in a way that now this obj1 also now points to the same object which was being referred by obj2. Okay, so now obj1 also refers to the same object. That means in short you can say that obj1, so this is a reference variable. Now this parent class reference variable contains the child class object. This is the simplest way of saying. So this parent class object obj parent class reference object reference variable obj1 contains the child class object now. Okay, and this has been achieved via these three steps. So this is known as upcasting. Okay, this is known as upcasting because I have made a higher level class to point to a child class. I have made a super class point to a child class object. Okay, so this is known as upcasting. Now what you will do is you see the next statement here. I have invoked the method. The method name is also the same. I have given it as method. So I've invoked this particular method function using which object? Using obj1, using obj1. So now see this method, okay, this is an overridden method of the child class. So this method belongs to B also and it belongs to A also. And how am I referring to this particular method? Using the parent class reference variable, which is obj1. If you can say, I'm not using the child class reference variable, now I'm not using obj2. As in the previous examples, I have been using child class reference variables. Yes, here I am not using the child class reference variable. I am using the parent class reference variable, that is obj1, and I am trying to invoke the method, this method, the overridden method. Okay, now let's see which method will be called. Okay, so let me, just let me copy paste this in the editor. Copy it. Okay, see this is 1 to 3 will you test say. error learn. Oh, থাকিয়ে গ'ল। কি error আহিছে? Five got expected. ঠিকে তো আছে। Look at this. So what output do you get? Class A. So this is the child class message, if you can see. So how have we achieved this? We have, how have we invoked this particular method of the child class using the parent class object reference variable? Yes. So it is this overridden method which will be called. But the same thing that we have achieved is using the parent class reference variable. Okay. And this will be resolved in runtime. So that is why this is known as runtime polymorphism, that you have understood by now. Okay. uh, but anyways, have you বুজি পাইছা না এখিনি কেনেকে হল? Huh? Because we are creating child class objects only, but we are storing those child class object in parent class reference variables in a way that now the parent class reference variable contains object of the child class. So using this, we achieve dynamic method dispatch or runtime polymorphism. Okay. Now the same thing that has been written here, this can be minimized. Okay. This can be minimized using a single step. If you can see, we have written 3 steps here for upcasting. Now these 3 steps can be minimized into a single step, and that is what I have written here. I have rewritten this entire class here. Okay, সেইটো আমি চাই আছো এতিয়া. See, it is the same thing that I have done here. Okay, but we have done it using a single statement. See here, b obj1. Okay, so here I have declared the child class parent class object reference variable. Then what I have done is I have created an object, because which constructor are you calling here? You are calling the class A constructor. So here you are actually creating the class A or the child class object, and then you are storing that object where? In the parent class reference variable. Okay, so it is the same thing. So whatever we did using these 3 statements, okay, first creating object of the child class, making the child class reference variable point to the object, then assigning that value to the parent class so that it now contains the child class object. So these 3 steps has been minimized into a single step here. Okay, so now this, through a single statement, now you can achieve what we did here. Okay, so here we are creating the parent class reference variable, and we are storing the object of the child class here. Okay, we are pointing directly. So here, so when this statement will be displayed, this particular object, okay, this thing will not be created. Just remove it. Okay, this will not be created, only this will be created internally. So you have created the child class object, this, and what are we doing? We are storing it inside the obj1, that is the parent class object. Okay, parent class reference variable. Have you understood? And then what we have done is, using that parent class reference variable, now we are invoking the method. and which method is called, that will be resolved at runtime. But we know that, okay, we know which method will be called because we understand the concept of overriding, not the compiler. So the compiler needs full information. So here the compiler will fail to understand which method has been called. So that thing will be resolved at runtime. Okay, so now the same thing here, you see we have again created another object. Okay, we have created another object here, obj2. This is for the parent class itself. Okay, this is for the parent class itself. And now obj2, so this is for the parent class object and this is for the child class object. Okay, but the reference variables both are for the parent class only. Okay, so now again by using the parent class reference variable obj2, I have called the method. Now, which are the two methods that will be called? So, as you know, that this is for the child class method, okay? Because we are storing the parent, we are storing the child class object inside the parent class reference variable. So, we are referring to the child class object only, okay? Since we are referring to the child class object only, so whenever we will call the method through this particular reference variable, it is always the child class method that will be invoked as per the rules of inheritance. Okay, so this is the child class method that will be invoked. So that is why it is always the this message that will be displayed. Okay, and when now, since this is a reference variable for the parent class object, so this is, we are now inside the parent class object now. So when this method will be invoked, okay, using this reference variable, it will always invoke the parent class method. So as you can see, using parent class reference variables, now we can refer to both child class as well as parent class methods or properties, whatever you call it. Have you understood? So this is how we implement runtime polymorphism or dynamic method dispatch, and this is achieved by using the technique method overriding. Is it clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, rest কাৰোবাৰ কিবা ডাউট আছে নেকি কোৱা?
Yes, ma'am.
কি ডাউট আছে? ডাউট আছে নে বুজি পাইছা কাৰণে য়েছ মেম কৈছা? কি কৈছা?
No, ma'am. বুজি পাইছো.
অঁ ঠিক আছে। Okay, then we have very two small examples হা, এইখিনি মই শেষ কৰাই দিওঁ আজি পুতুককে। আচ্ছা চোৱা, see, now we will see we have seen methods, we have seen method overriding. So what do you understand that runtime polymorphism can be achieved with methods, right? Because we have been doing method overriding only. So we have seen that runtime polymorphism or dynamic method dispatch can be achieved with methods. Now, is it possible to achieve runtime polymorphism with data members? মানে variables or লগত আমি কৰিব পাৰিম নে নোৱাৰিম runtime polymorphism? We have an example here. Okay, so yate example to swap, we have a class A, we have a simple variable I. Okay, this is a data member whose value is 10. Then child B is the class of class B is the child of class A, and then we have the same data member whose value is 20 now. Okay, then we have the main function. Then what we have done is, you see, we have this parent class reference variable which is storing the child class object. Okay, so since the parent class reference variable is now pointing to the child class object, okay, it is obvious that when there will be a call to this data member, when we will be calling this data member, it is 20 that needs to be displayed, because we are storing the object B in class A, right? So we are referring to class object of class B. So class B jikhini as a property, actually that needs to be displayed or invoked, right? But see, we have a statement here, system.out.println, then a.i. Jury statement to swa a.i. So this is a since we are calling the variable I, so we have called it using a dot the object name dot the variable name I. So since we are inside the child class object, so actually it should have been 20 that that should be call, but it is not 20, it is 10 that will be displayed. Okay, etu bostu moi ebar dekhai dium malukok yate. Oh, মই এটা পাহৰি এইবিলাক এডিট কৰিব. See, if you can see the murky koisuli mandari je though we are creating reference variable of the parent class, but kuntu object create kori asu we are creating only the child class object. So this parent class reference variable is pointing to the child class object. So what does that mean? That parent class of this variable will be referring to all the properties that are inside this object, right? So when I try to invoke the variable I, okay, it should have been this I that should have been displayed, but key display hoise 10. So what do you understand by that? Runtime polymorphism cannot be achieved with data members. Is it clear? Runtime polymorphism cannot be achieved with data members. So yate moi etu disu. Next we will see another example, runtime polymorphism with multi-level inheritance. So if you have a multi-level inheritance you remember, right? So you have a parent class which has been inherited by a child class, right? Then again you have that child class which has been inherited by another child class. So these are different, there are different levels. So single inheritance hai, but single inheritance means one level inheritance. You have a parent class which has been which has been inherited by a child class. But when you have multiple levels, okay, of inheritance, multiple levels of inheritance, that we call multi-level inheritance. So here you see we have three classes, class A with this method, then class B extends A. So you have this method, again it's overriding, so the same method we are using. Then we have class C which extends class B. Okay, so C is the child of B, B is the child of A. We have the same method again. Then we have the main method, and we have tried, okay, dynamic method dispatch try korisu. These are all, as you can see, these are all reference variables of class A, okay, which we are using. First, this A1 will store the object of its own class. So this is the parent class object itself. Okay, so A1 will store the parent class object itself. A2 is storing the next level child class object B, okay, and A3 is storing the last level child class object. It means grandchild. C is the grandchild of A. So এখিনি সাগে বুজি পাইছা, A1 এ নিজৰ object store কৰিব, A2 এ immediate child class object to store কৰিব, and A3 এ grandchild class object to store কৰিব. ঠিক আছে? So ইয়াতে I have not described the bodies of these methods. Yate I have given the full implementation. Not this. Okay, so suppose you have these three classes, and then you have these three messages. Okay, first will display class A, next is class B, and the third is class C1. Okay, then the same has been done here using these three statements. Okay, we are creating reference variable of the parent class itself, but to store different objects of different classes. This is for the parent class object, this is for the next child class object, and this is the last child class object. Okay, and you know the concept of multiple inheritance, that if C1 is inheriting properties of B, so whatever is there inside B will belong to C1. And what do we have inside B? We have everything that belongs to B and A, because B is a child of A now, right? So C1 now contains everything that is in B and in A, right? So now if you make calls to M1 method by each of these three variables, okay, a1.m1, a2.m1, and a3.m1, what do you think what will be called? When a1.m1, when this particular statement will be invoked, which is the method that will get displayed? It is this class A. Why? Because A1 is containing the object of its own class. Parent, this is the parent class object. Okay, A1 is pointing to the parent class object, so whatever method is inside the parent class, that will be displayed. So this M1 method will get displayed, that is obvious. Now A2 is containing the object of class B, so when you call it, this method will get displayed. And here A3 is containing the object of class C1. Okay, so when M1 will be invoked, it is this method which should get invoked according to the concept that we have understood for now, right? So let's see what messages we get. See, it is that message only. Okay, the one we were expecting. First class A, then class B, and then class C1. Okay, so it is possible to achieve runtime polymorphism in multi-level inheritance also. Fine. So we have done runtime polymorphism, method overriding. Next class tomorrow kitia ase on Monday, no? Next class we will do abstraction, abstract classes interfaces. Okay, that is very important. Hetur pisot we will start with the third module, which is packages and exception handling. Third module dutai ase, packages or exception handling korile hoi jabo third module. আৰু কি আছে packages exception handling খিনি অলপ ভালকে কৰিব লাগিব. Next we have fourth module multi threading আছে অলপমান হ'ব। তোমালোকৰ ক্লাसेছটো গম পাইছা নহয় কেতিয়ালৈ হ'ব?